Hey, hey! This is Talking Pop Culture with Jake D. I am going live here for the first time on a weekday evening. I hope everybody is doing well. I am excited to be here. Very, very happy to have you. And it is just good to be spending some time here, just sort of talking about things in pop culture that are going on this week. You know, things that have come up. I originally intended this to be just mainly to talk about kind of the latest rumors that we're hearing about our favorite franchises. But there were a couple of pieces of news that hit over the past 24 hours that I actually want to get to first before we go into those rumors. So, the first one up, and this popped up just today, just a few hours ago. And I've linked to Bounding Into Comics, which is a great, great site and a friend of the fandom menace. And we have had confirmed today by Variety that in the upcoming Solo Flash movie, although perhaps Solo is not necessarily the best term for it, we are going to have not one previous Batman returning, but at least two. Yes, that's right. Two different Batmen at a minimum in the new Flash movie. So, again, coming to us from Bounding Into Comics, the Flash director, Andy Muschietti, confirms Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton both will play their Batman characters in the Flash film. So, those of you who've been around for a while and you're old like me, you probably remember the first modern Batman movie with Michael Keaton. And fans have been clamoring for Keaton to return to the role. He has, recently in his more mature career, really done some really, really great roles. And the whole nostalgia for the 80s that's going on has really, I think, helped to push the fans to want to bring Keaton back to the role. And the other very unexpected thing, though, is that Batfleck will be back. So Ben Affleck was a bit of a controversial choice to play Batman. He was not necessarily somebody that the fans saw as a good choice to play Bruce Wayne and Batman at all. And which was unfortunate because Affleck was actually outstanding in the role as Batman. He played that tortured Bruce Wayne perhaps better than any actor that's had the role on the silver screen. I was a big fan of Affleck playing Batman. And the news that hit today was that Affleck was given the script to this new Flash movie just last week. And he read the script and he liked it so much that he got back to them just today to confirm that he would play the role. Apparently, Affleck's only going to play a small role at the start of the movie, but it's supposed to be very emotionally important for the journey that Ezra Miller's Flash is going to go through. And if the Flash is really going to see Affleck as the original Batman in his mind because he's the Batman in the universe that the Flash came from. So, this is, it's very cool news because we are going to get to see the Ben Affleck Batman again. The only, to me, the downside of this rumor, not rumor, this is a confirmation. So the downside to this one is that we do, unfortunately, still have Ezra Miller playing the role of the Flash. And Ezra Miller he's got his fans out there, but, at least in the folks that I speak to, he's not particularly popular. He's got a lot of personal things that make people not particularly happy with him as the Flash. And, I'd rather see him recast. I didn't like his portrayal of Barry Allen and some of the off-the-screen shenanigans that Miller's gotten into. I don't want to see that in my hero universes. those of you may remember, he got arrested for getting into an altercation with a woman when he was in Iceland earlier this year, and just not my favorite. But the fact that Affleck's going to start with Miller in this movie because he's the Batman from the universe that the Flash knows. But then apparently it is confirmed also that Keaton is definitely in the movie, and he's going to be Batman for the majority of the movie. The role for Keaton is described as significant. So Keaton played the original Batman in 1989, and he was the first big screen version of the Batman that we got, where they took the roles and the situation seriously. We didn't see. Adam West did a big screen movie Batman, but it was in the style of the campy old show. And for a lot of us, I remember going to see Batman with my dad in the theater when I was a kid, and Keaton's Batman and his Wayne in particular were just really, really good. And as Keaton's matured as an actor and become an older actor, one of the things that I'm very hopeful that this appearance in the Flash movie might end up with is maybe we'll get to see Keaton doing a kind of a Dark Knight Returns type of storyline, or where he's playing that older Cape Crusader that's sort of trying to come back into things after many, many years. And there are some really good comics on the source material for this, and I'm just super excited to see Keaton back in the cowl, and that's just going to be a whole lot of fun. Getting to see two Batmen in the same movie is just outstanding. And one of the other things that this confirms about the approach that DC is planning to take with their movies is they're actually canonizing everything that you've seen on the screen, whether big or small. They're fully bringing about the concept of the DC multiverse, which has been around and a big deal in the DC comics for many, many years, even when I was a young man reading the comics. And so what that is going to do is it makes the Arrowverse TV shows that had the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover last winter, that's all real. That's now one of the multiverses within the DC universe, as is the Christian Bale Batman, as is the Michael Keaton Batman, as is Batfleck, the whole bang. They all exist. They're all a part of a wider DC universe, which it's a cool concept because one of the things that does is nothing has ever been a reboot in DC. And that's definitely a retcon, at least to the extent they hadn't talked about it before, but it was certainly always an option in how these things were working. Which is neat, because if you were a fan of the Keaton Batman, if you were a fan of the Kilmer Batman, if you were a fan of the Adam West Batman, they all exist, which is very cool. It's something that nobody's really played with before, and I'm excited for it. I like it. It's fun. It's a good option that really hasn't been delved into before. So yay. So I really mean that. Yay. It's something that just we haven't seen within any sort of film universe, whether it be for superheroes or anything else for that matter, any of the number of screen universes anybody's attempted to put together. So so that's kind of the big piece of news that hit today. I'll probably try to put together a video on that a little bit later to go over what happened there. I want to talk a little bit about, I made a short video this morning where, for lack of a better term, I was angry. Netflix felt fit to market a movie called Cuties. And it's about an 11-year-old girl who is, not behaving as if she was 11. It's a story that would be okay, perhaps, maybe, if we were talking about a 17, 18-year-old girl, but 11 is not okay to pretty much anybody, quite frankly, given the backlash that Netflix has received over this production. The backlash has been harsh, it has been rapid, and it has come from everywhere. Everybody has just universally clamped down and been angry about this production. And the excuse that's been offered is that supposedly the motivations of the filmmaker were due to her own revulsion at how all of us reacted when we saw the promotional material for this production. And it rings really hollow to me because it was not marketed as in any way, shape, or form as if that was the purpose. That's not how it was described. That's not how the trailer presented it. That's not how the promotional posters presented it. And I just don't buy it. And it's, Netflix, cancel Cuties. Cancel Cuties now. It's not okay. And that's about all I've got to say on it. It's not okay at all. So, I don't want to dwell on that too much, but it hit me very hard because my oldest daughter is 11 years old, and there's just not a world where that's okay. All right. So so what's been going on in life? What's been going on around and about, other than, sort of those news pieces before we get into the rumors going on. So, we've all been living a very different life for the past 6 months than we were, most of us, ever in our lives prior to that point in time. And, this whole pandemic that has hit the world has changed a whole lot of things. And one of the things that's done is that, I haven't driven to an office to work since March. It's what you see right now is a new office space that I've set up here at the home to work. And, during the workday, I'm facing this machine over here. And during my, my time outside of work, if I'm doing work on YouTube videos or talking to y'all, whatever it may be, I'm facing this direction. So, I got work and then I got play right here. And one of the things that not driving to the office has done is that, obviously I haven't put a lot of miles on the car. And so I was going to the store today and wouldn't you know it, my battery is out. And, hopefully it'll charge back up if I take it for a bit of a drive for a while here. But, it's one of those things to think about if you've been stuck at home a lot, like I have, and like most of us have. Don't forget, take that car for a drive, because it needs that time to make sure it fully charges the battery, gets you going, things like that. Those of us particularly who've been working at home, as opposed to driving, 30, 45 minutes to an office like we used to, your car is just not getting that workout. And you do not want to get surprised when you need that thing to start and it doesn't, like what happened to me today. So just these are adjustments and changes to our lives that we all kind of need to get used to and think about and be ready for. But so the car didn't start. Maybe I need a new battery. There's my fun today. All right. Star Trek. Changes may be coming to Star Trek productions. So you got to set the background to this to describe why it is that these rumors are starting to get out and coming around that we're hearing all in relation to Trek. So Trek had been operated under the auspices of J.J. Abrams' production company, Secret Hideout and Bad Robot, to, in the films and in the CBS All Access universe. And so the Kurtzman run shows on CBS All Access had been running under that license, under the CBS umbrella, and none of them have been particularly well received or successful to the wider audiences. A lot of reasons for that. The biggest thing preventing these from getting to a wider audience, to give you a really good view of just what a truly wide swath of folks feel about them, is the fact that they're behind the CBS All Access paywall. The first CBS All Access show was Star Trek Discovery. It's run for 2 seasons. We should be seeing season 3 here in a few weeks. They have also produced the, again, poorly received Star Trek Picard, where Sir Patrick Stewart reprised his role as Jean-Luc Picard in his supposed old age, and really, frankly, in a different universe than we saw from Star Trek. It took place a number of years after Nemesis, which was the last movie that Picard appeared in. And both Discovery and Picard, one of the big reasons that they failed to capture the old Trek fans like myself is because they don't look and feel like Trek. Trek was always an episodic adventure in space. While there may have been a few longer story arcs, it was mainly contained within 2 and or 3 parters at the most. But it was a story of the week. You could pop in, you could pop out anytime you wanted, and you'd have your familiar characters going on their adventure of the week. They're in space solving problems. It was an intellectual show. It was a science show. It was a character show. And the underlying theme has always been optimism. It's a post-scarcity society, which means nobody wants for anything. If you need food, it's simply available. Think about the replicators that you see and things like that. So Trek is optimistic. It is a picture of the future in which humanity has transcended our petty squabbles that we see on Earth today. So we were not burdened with racism. We were not burdened with sexism. We were not burdened with any of the ists or the isms or any of those things. And that's one of the things that made Trek, is that aspirational view of life and attainment. And Discovery and Picard, neither show took that worldview, and they didn't show us a world or a federation that exemplified those ideals. They showed us corruption. They showed us power struggles. They showed us poverty. They showed us racism and xenophobia and as endemic and within the Federation, and not just perhaps dealt with relations with the Klingons, for instance, and that's where Kurtzman Trek misses the mark. And CBS recently merged back with Paramount Viacom to create this new conglomerate, CBS Viacom, which owns the Paramount Studios, which has the movie licenses for Trek, and CBS All Access has the TV license. And we're hearing a lot of talk that the new head of production for Paramount and Viacom, I believe her name is Amy Watts, has engaged in a bit of a power struggle with J.J. Abrams and Alex Kurtzman for the future of Trek. The day after Star Trek Lower Decks premiered, an article hit the news wires discussing the fact that Paramount didn't know what the hell to do with Star Trek. They were trying to paint a new path forward. The way the article was framed is it made it seem as though it was talking about just the movies, but it seems unlikely that it's only talking about the movie universe. And so the rumors that have been going around, specifically, they hit 4chan first. Okay, so you got to understand that 4chan, it's sometimes there's good stuff there. Sometimes there's a lot of bogus information. So at the barest minimum, you got to take this with a grain of salt. Okay. But so these rumors that hit 4chan about Star Trek, they're basically detailing just a lot of unrest internally at CBS Viacom. They're painting a picture of two almost warring factions. You've got the lady in charge of the movies, who's trying to figure out how to reboot, restart, and do something with what was once this very valuable IP that people wanted to see. When Captain Kirk hit the big screens, people wanted to see Captain Kirk. I was watching a stream earlier where two channels whom I absolutely love, The Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic, were talking about Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and just an amazing film, and Kirk and McCoy and Spock, they drew people to the theaters, and they entertained, and they by themselves could drive the box office, particularly when they had a wonderful movie like Undiscovered Country. And this is a good comment here from Mary. It's not fun escapism with interesting aliens and great characters like TNG. And yes, exactly. Discovery and Picard were anything but that. And CBS is not making money on these shows. They haven't released their numbers, but we know they're not doing well, because if they were, they would have shown us the numbers, and they haven't. We know that they're doing poorly, and the new merged company has a fiduciary requirement that it be profitable. That was one of the conditions for approving the merger. So you've got this battle kicking off interior within CBS Viacom over who's going to control Trek. And what we should really, honestly, if you're a fan of Trek, you need to be hoping for the stockholders and the major companies that are invested into CBS Viacom to be raising hell right now, because they want a profit. And right now, Star Trek's not profitable. They're putting out a product that is Michael Chabon, the showrunner of Star Trek Picard, literally said that he wrote things into the show to intentionally piss off old Star Trek fans. That's a paraphrase, but that's what it comes down to. He literally said that in an interview where he put things in to try to piss people off, because frankly, he thought that they were mouth breathing knuckle draggers. I mean, he literally thought these were bad people, so he wanted to piss them off. And what he doesn't get is that was at least half of his fan base. And when you push half your fan base away, it's when you start losing money. And the people you're pushing away were the people who bought the toys. They were the people who bought the VHS over and over, and then they bought 3 DVDs because they broke one or their kid took one, or and then they got the Blu-ray on top of that and consumed all of the ancillary material. Those are the same people that you push away with that kind of thing. And so until you understand that the way to make the most money as a production company is to make sure you're putting out a product that everybody can enjoy, you're not going to have those mega profitable franchises anymore. You can't. It's just not possible. Why only sell to half the people? I mean, that's just a shitty business plan, right? I've got this group of people right here, right? I got this group of people, and this is who we can sell to. That's my total. But you know what? This portion of them, I don't like them. So we're only going to sell to these guys right here. I mean, that's a much smaller pool of consumers and customers from whom you can earn your money. And it's just a bad policy when your goal, I mean, you've got to be profitable or you can't keep producing this stuff and you're going to write yourself out of your own job. So, I mean, I'm rooting for Watts and Paramount on this one because they seem to at least have a solid business mind. And that at least hopefully will result in a better quality of entertainment from, my beloved franchise of Star Trek. And that's, that is what I'm hoping to see and what I would absolutely love to see at the end of the day. So, so that's what supposedly is happening behind the scenes over there at CBS and Paramount. And, by God, I certainly hope that is the case. The rumors include the possibility that pretty much everything that they're producing right now is getting canceled, that the upcoming season 3 of Discovery is going to be the very, very last season that airs. Supposedly they filmed the finale for the season such that it could serve as a series ender as well, but without completely closing it off in case they were to be renewed. The same rumors are addressing the fact saying that Star Trek Picard has been canceled, and we're going to get the official notice of that in November. We're going to continue to hear Patrick Stewart, talk as if it's happening until that point. Again, this rumor suggests that that's the point when he's out of contract and he no longer has to pump the show anymore. And we'll see how that pans out. But I'm personally I'm pretty hopeful that is exactly what's going to occur. So, what is going on over at The Mandalorian and Lucasfilm? So, sort of the first part of what we're hearing about coming out of Lucasfilm, there have been a lot of supposed leaks about the state of things at Lucasfilm. We've got, again, another channel that I follow, Overlord DVD, All Hail Lord Doomcock. He's got a lot of people that send him rumors from the inside of these productions and these companies. And what he's been hearing, and he's been releasing a series of videos as these leaks continue to come to him, and other folks have been hearing similar leaks from different sources as well, which seems to be lending credence to this. But the word is that we're going to be getting some kind of very, very major announcement as it relates to Lucasfilm early in September. I believe the exact date is supposed to be September 4th. I mean, we'll see if that holds up or not. Hey, I just got news. I get that day off as a company-wide holiday, so I can be sitting glued to my seat to wait and hear it. but supposedly some sort of big announcements coming out, and the expectation is that's going to be Kathleen Kennedy stepping back from Lucasfilm, and it appears that Jon Favreau is most likely the person who's stepping in to take over leadership at Lucasfilm. It'll be kind of a triumvirate of Kevin Feige, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni. Now, all three of these guys have got some really amazing chops behind them. So if you're not familiar, Kevin Feige, he may be one of the most successful people whose name you haven't heard if you don't follow the MCU really closely. Kevin Feige and Jon Favreau really sort of together started the MCU. Feige came in a little bit later and really gave it its legs. So, in the beginning, it was Favreau, right? He was the guy. He put together the original Iron Man movie, and he was working with Feige over the past, 10, 11 years within the MCU as one of the producers and story guys. And, you may recognize him as Happy, who was Iron Man's, friend, assistant, whatever moniker you want to give him. That was Favreau. And Favreau is first and foremost a fan. He is a fan of these properties. He built Iron Man in such a way that if you didn't know who he was, and you could be forgiven for not knowing, because he was kind of a C-list character for Marvel in the comics. He wasn't your lead guy. He wasn't the X-Men. He was not the Fantastic Four, which used to be referred to as Marvel's first family. He was Iron Man. He was on the Avengers, but he certainly was not an A-list character. So Favreau took a washed-up actor in Robert Downey Jr., he took a C-list character in Iron Man, and he turned them into cinematic juggernauts. And it was his vision and his approach to fandom as a fan himself that makes the difference. I'm gonna play a little clip here to show you a bit of what I'm talking about.
We wanted to really wind it back to the things that inspired the original Star Wars. Part of what you inherit when you're going to see Star Wars now is this whole history, because the stories have been told for decades. And this is something I learned from over at Marvel and working with Kevin Feige, is you always want to keep the core fans in mind, because they've been the ones that have been keeping the torch lit for many, many years. But these are also stories for young people and for new audiences. These are myths. And so you're really telling two stories at once. You're telling the story for the people who are fresh eyes, and you're telling the story for the people who've been there with the property and with the stories and the characters for so many years, and make sure that you're honoring them as well.
So that's Favreau. Obviously, he's talking about his approach to Star Wars and The Mandalorian there, but he built that same point of view when he was working on building up the MCU. In an interview that he gave a couple days after making those remarks, Favreau was discussing how they could be filming season 3 regardless of the fact that there's this pandemic going on that causes people to not be able to be as mobile and in and out of places as we once were. So the key piece that they were talking about was, first, Favreau says that season 3 is not going to be delayed. And, although he can't officially acknowledge that it exists yet, it's kind of one of those open secrets that there is going to be a season 3 of this show. And one of the things that he was talking about is that they shoot on virtual sets for the most part, and they can be contained, and they don't they can do their work in an environment such that everybody can sort of be within the filming compound, if you will, with having almost no contact from the outside world. So you can basically bring the people in, you can test them, you can, keep them quarantined for, a week or two as you need to. and then everybody can just be on set working and filming and building this new season, which reports suggest is already written and ready to go. And sort of the money quote from Favreau was, the fact that the set is much more contained is a benefit because you can limit the number of people. A lot of people controlling it are doing it remotely from what we call the brain bar, which is a bank of gaming computers, essentially. So the amount of people near the camera could be much smaller than normal. We also shoot a lot outside, which is helpful too. We build to a moment in filming more like an animated production where we have a lot of storyboards, a lot of discussions and scouting in virtual reality. We use cinematic tools in VR, much the same way we did for The Lion King and The Jungle Book. A lot of times, actors you're seeing on the screen aren't actually there on set. So what that means is he believes they'll be able to advance production, whether or not these quarantine conditions still exist when it comes time to hit the sets for season 3, which is good news. It means that they can advance production when perhaps virtually no other shows will be, which is a huge advantage for these guys. Nice, cool part about this too is that they can take advantage of those same technological advancements when and if they ever begin filming the Obi-Wan series that I've personally just been salivating for. I was always a bit worried about it with Kathleen Kennedy in charge, but again, some of these rumors that we're hearing come out of Lucasfilm suggest that not only is she not in charge anymore, but she actually hasn't been for a while now. And I know for me, if Favreau and Feige and Filoni are in charge, I've got faith and hope in Star Wars again. And maybe I'm the crazy one for that, but among all of the franchises that have had such a drastic fall from grace recently, the one that can probably most easily recover is Star Wars. And the reason it can most easily recover is for two major reasons. One, it had the largest fan base among them to begin with. Say what you want about Trek, Doctor Who, the MCU, any of that stuff. Star Wars had the largest fan base. Because it had the largest fan base, even though it's alienated a lot of people, there's still enough there that you could build it back up. There are still enough people like me who, if I get the right message from the creators and I see a product that looks and feels like Star Wars, they will get my money again. In fact, I am so confident in Favreau. Excuse me. I'm so confident in Favreau being the guy and being able and capable of taking Star Wars in the right direction that I went ahead and put my money where my mouth is on this one. And you can see I went ahead and I picked up a Mando Black Series character here. This just got shipped in the other day, and I love it. I wish they'd had one when he was in the full Beskar armor rather than the original armor that we saw him in at the start of the show, because that just looked way cooler. And because it was, fully just shiny and sleek. And not that the Worn armor isn't cool too, because it is, but the full Beskar is just sexy. Loved the design of it. It's just great. But so that's my little Mando. If they drop a Black Series with him in the full Beskar, I'll probably buy that one too. But that's what I'm talking about when I say Star Wars still has people who are going to be willing to open the wallets back up if they turn it around. And if Favreau's the guy leading that charge back, given how he talks about the fans, how he speaks about these stories as our myths, and the way that he says you're telling two stories, one for the fans that have been there and one for the new people that you're introducing to it, I'm confident that this guy gets it and he can put together a solid product that can be successful. Star Trek they may be beyond hope, even if they do set the ship right. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because their fan base just wasn't as large. They were certainly the more intelligent show. The and it had a very different type of fan by and large, but unfortunately, there just weren't as many of them. And with sort of the destruction of Star Wars that's been going on, it sucks because Trek just doesn't have as much room for error and recovery. So Mary wants to know what I think about the remakes coming out of Hollywood, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles worked because of the talent, the actors. that movie. Now, granted, it's been a few years since I've seen it, so forgive me if I'm a little rusty on my lore on that one. Gosh, it's probably been at least 10 years, maybe longer. But without John Candy, that movie doesn't happen. It doesn't work. You can plug almost any other comedian of his time into that role, and I don't think it works because it was so unique to the personalities and the interplay between them. So rather than trying to capitalize on the nostalgia of lightning in a bottle, the better approach. So let me start by saying Will Smith and Kevin Hart are both fucking awesome. I love them both. They are great actors. Each one of them is. I think the first thing, sort of after the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which was a really funny TV show that Will Smith did before he started going by Will Smith again, was he the first kind of big thing I remember him in after that was probably Independence Day. And, the guy's got great range. He has done action. He has done comedy. He has been a musical talent. He's been in horror. You name it, Will Smith has done it, and he has done it well. Kevin Hart, I don't think I've seen him do anything outside of comedy, but he's a great comedian, and he makes me laugh. I enjoy his performances. It was fucking ridiculous that they pulled him off of hosting the awards show. That dude got screwed. He should have been up there on that stage. Do I have every bit of confidence that Smith and Hart can have good chemistry? Yes, I do, because Hart's a great comedian and Smith has chemistry with basically everybody, which apparently is also true if you ask his wife. Yeah, but that's, but let's not get into that too much. But on screen, Smith is amazing. Hart is good. I fully believe the two of those guys could put together a great comedy. What I don't think they should do is make it Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And the main reason that I feel that way is because there's just no point in trying to. If you're chasing the success that was Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you're going to inevitably miss the mark. A better approach would be to go ahead and put those two in some kind of buddy comedy, come up with a unique situation. Hell, it can be about travel or whatever. It doesn't, those two guys can work in some kind of oddball situation. And I think you're better off going original for a few reasons. Chasing what Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was, I ultimately even if you nailed it, I think you're going to run into pushback from people who just don't want to see what they consider to be perfection touched. And if you don't nail it, then you're going to have an even wider swath of people who blame them for the fact that they missed it, right? So a better approach, particularly when you've got two good actors like that, is just put something unique together. You can even, when you're talking about what you wrote, you could even say things like, we wanted to do something like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. We wanted to put together that type of, absurd situation, whatever it is, for a new generation, which is fine, right? I mean, there's been rehashes of stories and general plots and things like that since Shakespeare's days, right? I mean, every story he ever wrote had already been told in some way, shape, or form. He just told it better than people had before him. And the same is true today. There's no reason that Smith and Hart can't make some amazing comedy together. And if they turn out to be a great duo, they could make 2, 3, 4 more movies together, and they'd make a boatload of money while they were doing it. But something that's sort of quintessentially of the actors who portrayed it to begin with, you really should just leave it be. For the same reason, if anybody tries to go anywhere near the Princess Bride, they're going to have their throats ripped out. You should just leave those properties alone, in terms of sort of reboots in that sense. At least when you're not talking about franchises. I mean, franchises you want to kind of kick off again and sort of bank on the brand. But, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is anything but a franchise. So if there's no franchise brand to capitalize on, it's just dumb. There's no point in it. Just make an original IP and make a great comedy with those two guys, because they don't need the brand of Candy and Martin. They can just be Smith and Hart, and it can be great. So why not just do that? You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but but I don't see a reason why those guys can't just do their own thing, and it'd be amazing, because they're both brilliant, and I'm sure they'll work well together. Oh, goodness. So DC Comics had a huge bloodletting at the company a couple of weeks ago. They had almost every major creative executive fired. Tons of their editors got fired. They have emphasized that they're cutting at least 25% of their titles, and they're probably not done firing people yet. And so there'd been a lot of initial optimism that this meant we were going to see a higher quality of comic coming out of DC, because they were under a lot of pressure from AT&T, who acquired them through the Warner acquisition, to show a profit. And AT&T, the chairman said during their third quarter earnings call last year that they had no sacred cows. And he flat out said that he was going to be cutting things. He would be getting rid of divisions. He'd be getting rid of people, because his chief goal was to reduce their debt load. And so anybody who wasn't contributing by earning money was, potentially on the block. And so we've seen I believe it was the day, or at most a few days after, DC released a Wonder Woman 1984 alternative cover. And I will show you this, and it will blow your mind, because it's rather crazy. what this looks like. And for anybody who hasn't seen this yet, your jaw's going to drop. So this is, see if I can get the full image. Yeah, here we go. All right, so here's the full image of an alternate cover for Wonder Woman 1984. So it's important to note that the artist who drew this was asked to do so. This is what her art looks like. This should not have been a surprise to DC Comics. They knew what she drew, how she drew things, and who she was. The general sort of approach here. So the fact that her hair is kind of a cutout of the background that she's got behind the image. I like that from sort of a styling perspective, but obviously this is not Wonder Woman. The artist didn't claim that it was Wonder Woman. She said it was an alien, in the style of Wonder Woman. And the thing about this, though, is that your cover art is a big part of what sells your comics. And the timing for all the firings at DC was very suspicious. It was almost like, and the guy's name is Jason. I think you pronounce it Killar, but I kind of like Killer better because that's what he did. so anyway, Killer. A couple days after this variant cover is announced, Killer brought the axe down and he cut tons of people from the DC leadership and sort of their mid-range management type folks, and one specific editor who defended this cover as being strong, brave, and amazing. The day after he defended the cover was fired. So a lot of people took that as a sign that we might be seeing some good changes at DC. I didn't do a video on this at the time because I wanted to take a wait and see. It was certainly encouraging first steps. That was definitely what would have to happen for there to be a correction at DC. But then the new editor-in-chief of DC, Jim Lee, who's been there for a while, he came out with a statement a few days later trying to make people more comfortable with what DC was doing. And, one of the things he talked about and stressed was, they're not ending the comic book. They still see some strength in a lot of their stuff. And one of the things about the only specific thing that he mentioned was their YA line. If you don't know what YA comics are, that stands for young adult. That is, it's basically dumbed down garbage, to be quite frank with you. So this is an image here of the cover of the Gotham High graphic novel. Now, what I will give them is that the art's not bad here. The art's okay. It's certainly much better than some I've seen. It kind of reminds me of comics I read when I was a kid to an extent. My problem here, of course, is that this is Bruce Wayne, the Joker, and Catwoman going to high school together and experiencing a love triangle. So this is, it's garbage. It's not It's not the American superhero comic, which is what I loved when I was young. This is I'm not even sure who this is written for, to be honest with you, because it's not a comic. It's not something that's particularly appealing, for most people who you would consider to be your traditional comic collector and your traditional comic buyer. Perhaps, I mean, maybe you'll strike some interest in sort of preteens, maybe. But I mean, when I was that age, I was reading regular old traditional comic books and loving them. And so your market for this, they sell these through Scholastic at the schools. So if you remember the book orders that you got when you were in third grade, and you paged through them and you picked out what you wanted. I remember getting Return of the Jedi book in one of those. That's the kind of thing that this sells through. And it's one of the few things that Jim Lee mentioned specifically as the future of DC. And this is, I mean, I guess they'll sell a few to Scholastic, but you can't run a shop on this. And this is not something that I would have ever gone into a comic shop for. And it's not something that, anybody who's been keeping the comic industry alive is going to be particularly thrilled and excited about. But this is what DC says they're going to go forward with, which I think it's unfortunate, because the first step looked potentially promising, but then to follow it up and say, oh, by the way, that garbage that everybody hated, that's what we're doing from now on. They didn't get the damn message. They really didn't. And if you're not producing a quality product that's going to sell to a mass market, you're just not going to be overall profitable. And if you're not making overall profitable comics, and you're not going to be making the comics any longer, maybe we'll see the key characters get licensed out to, some other company to do regular comics for, but it doesn't look like DC is going to be doing that monthly comic book for very long. Yeah, Mary, you make a good point. They're not even going to be collectible. I had some very collectible comics back in the day. I had the first appearance of Cable in New Mutants '87, which was kind of a big deal. I was, I left home and I went to college. And when I came back, some of my collectibles were missing. So it's, it is what it is. It's a shame. And, trying to re-put that kind of thing together was just so daunting that sort of in and of itself is probably what killed me buying comics in any regular way during my adult life more than anything else. It wasn't because I don't enjoy them or didn't, but it was, I had spent, oh Lord, I don't know, probably from when I was about 9 until I was, about 18, buying comics. I had subscriptions. I knew what day those things were going to show up in the mailbox, and I'd run out and get them, and I'd run to 7-Eleven to buy some, and we'd go to Mile High Comics to pick up stuff that I wanted specifically, and which is a huge comic shop. They're still around today, and they're not going to struggle through this because they were thinking ahead and thinking about what to do. But it's stuff like this Gotham High. It's not, maybe you'll get a quick, sort of low calorie sugar rush off of it initially, a couple of bucks, but this kind of thing doesn't have staying power. You can't build a continuous product off this type of book. It's just not something that's going to continue. So something I wanted to bring up today on the stream that I forgot to get to earlier, I meant to talk about it towards the beginning of the stream, was I hit a couple of cool little milestones this week. My channel is not quite a month old. I'm about 4 days short of a month since I uploaded my first video. And when I set the stream up, I was going to be really happy about the fact that I'd hit 25 subscribers. I've hit 30 now, which is cool. You know, it's been around for 25 days or so, and I've got 30 subscribers, which is very neat. I'm very fortunate to have access to some areas where I can reach people beyond just YouTube notifications, which I think has been a big help with that. But 30 subscribers is very, very cool. And, I look forward to having a celebration stream when I hit 100 subscribers. And, hopefully I can do that before too long. Certainly I would hope by the end of the year. I think I'm headed on a good trajectory there, but I'm thankful. Most of y'all are going to watch this on the replay, obviously, because I inadvertently cross-scheduled with a couple of channels that you're probably watching instead of me. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm grateful that anybody watches it, and I do look forward to hopefully earning enough y'all's trust that we can have a real active chat in here in the future. But 30 subscribers in about 25 days is pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and I'm pretty thrilled by that. It's fun, and I also had the very first video cross 100 views, which for most channels that's like a bad first minute. But for me that was the very first video hit 100 views, which is is cool. It feels really neat that you've touched some people that way, even maybe some of them hated it and didn't watch more than the first 5 seconds, but it's something that you've put together and you put a lot of work in, and some folks at least a few of them were entertained by it, and that's cool. It's neat, and hopefully someday I hope to be so lucky that I can say thank you for my first 500 view video, my first 1,000 view video. That's definitely a place I'd love to be a year from now or whatever it is. But those were kind of these two neat little milestones that I hit this week that were pretty cool. All right, well, I think I will get her wrapped up now. It's been a little over an hour, and I'm gonna go take my car for a bit of a drive, because appears my battery has run almost completely out, as I mentioned earlier in the stream. So I'm gonna wrap her up here and go drive the car around for 30-45 minutes, so that hopefully I can get her fully charged up and I don't have to go buy a new battery. But hey, that's quarantine life for you. You don't drive much and you kill your battery. All right, well, thank you everybody very, very much. For those of you watching on the replay, I hope my rambling wasn't too incoherent, and certainly please do like the video. And if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, I obviously would ask, if you made it this far into the stream, by golly, I hope you're willing to subscribe, because it is over an hour. So all right, y'all, have a good evening.